Welcome to the second episode of Ranting. This is Kio, and I rant. The other day, I had a discussion with one of my friends regarding the anime show that goes by the name Saga of Tanya the Evil, or as the original translation would be, A Girl's War, original being Jojo Senki. The discussion was mainly about him recently watching it and questioning different aspects of it, while I was correcting some things based on the light novels that the anime is based off. To begin this rant, I'll ask the question, what is Saga of Tanya the Evil? Saga of Tanya the Evil is an anime set during the First World War, but with slightly different elements. For example, there's magic devices being manufactured, and people that are compatible with magic are allowed to join the army, even if they're a bit too young for it. Hear how I butchered that Y in young. Now, who is Tanya? Because we can obviously hear that it's a name. Tanya Degrechav, as she's named now, is the protagonist of the show. She's a bit nuts and doesn't originate in this world. In his previous life, he was a salaryman. His work included firing people who didn't do their job. And one of the people who got fired decided to kill the main character out of anger, so he pushed the main character out on the rail in front of the train. And then he was reincarnated as Tanya, an orphan during World War I that turned out to have affinity with magic. She willingly joined the army on her 8th or 9th year of this life. It's not entirely clear, as the earliest they say a specific age number is 9, but they also earlier state with the age being a single digit. I did read on the wiki saying that her youngest age is 9, so we'll go with that. It doesn't matter that much, considering that she's not actually that old, only her body is. She's a kid drafted in the military. It wasn't forced though. She said she wanted to contribute to the country, and the quote goes, "This is the only path for me," which some commander takes very seriously. But things doesn't go as she wants them to. The being that reincarnated her, whom she called Being X, or the Devil, keeps on altering the world to ruin the plans for Tanya, which is to gain a little renown before moving to the backlines to relax. The explanation is a bit backwards, and I'm sorry about that. That's just how I rant. I write what I think of as I go on, and then sometimes fact check and correct before moving on. Anyways, what can I possibly talk about in this rant about Saga of Tanya the Evil? Isn't it just a cool anime about World War I but with magic? Yes, but actually, no. But also, no. I mean too hard. The Empire is a powerful military nation on the continent that looks much like 20th century Europe. But in this world, magic is real. The Empire is involved in war against the Entente Alliance and fighting a poorly executed delaying action in the Northern Theater. Second Lieutenant Tanya Degrechav leads a small platoon of mages, but there's something unusual about this lieutenant. She's only 9 years old. That was the summary of episode 1, which sort of proves her age being 9 at this time, but it's still not the earliest, because that's after she has gone on the school and stuff. The Military War Academy, I think it's the name was. If you haven't seen the show and don't want to be spoiled, I highly recommend you watch it. It's available on Crunchyroll. Now for the actual rant, where I may or may not spoil bits of the anime and compare certain scenes or aspects that were either changed or removed from the light novel. The next parts will include bits from later episodes. Please don't blame me if you're spoiled. First off, the light novels are thick. I think maybe a third of it is removed from the anime. Mostly is filler that you can't really animate, such as quote and war strategies from actual wars. One of my favorite being ICBM, abbreviation for Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. Dr. Von Braun said that the rocket worked perfectly, except for landing on the wrong planet. And then they went and came up with the most extreme use possible for it. Which is a funny way to put it. While other removed parts are just explained graphically, rather than said out loud, like the interior of offices or scenes, like other scenes aren't exactly explained word for word, but rather shown graphically. And compared to many of the quotes, historical events and war strategies can't really be animated without adding either a lot of text or someone reading them as they go, or taking a break from the story to animate the historical events all of which would be poor choices for this anime. So a lot of this was skipped. The strategy bits kept was the ones Tanya was thinking of, that you could hear. For example, when she did her strategy essay that was handed around the upper echelon during some parts, and another being when Tanya was talking to the higher-ups about how the war was advancing. The graphics does a really good job of explaining the rest, especially if you pay attention to details, like the baby chair she's sitting on in some point, because she's too short, or the amount of smoke that makes you understand why she's coughing and complaining. Which differences is it that matter then, or sticks out the most? There are some differences that doesn't make much difference. Like the student she kicked through a wall and pointed her rifle bayonet against. In the light novel, she was too petite and weak at this point, so that she couldn't wield a rifle. So this entire threatening scene was actually made with a military standard dagger rather than a bayonet. Only important part here is that she's unable to use a rifle at this point. Same goes with the scouting mission that we see her do in episode 2, where she is attacked by a sudden mage battalion before blowing herself up, all done with a knife and some nimble movements. Knowing this makes the scene more logical, because why else would she get the super rare Silver Wing medal while still being alive? Silver Wing medal is an honor medal, often hung on the hat of a deceased aviary soldier, pilot, because the requirements to get it are so high. So Tanya getting it makes more sense if you know that she took at least 2 soldiers down before self-destructing and getting another soldier down, as well as injuring at least 1 more, while only equipped with a military standard dagger and a transmutation orb. This next bit of my ranting may include a few more spoilers from the light novel, and this is the last spoiler warning. If you don't want to get spoiled, now is the time to end the episode, and I thank you for listening up to this point. Without further ado, time for differences that matter. The biggest difference is the reason she was reincarnated like this, and also the reveal of Being X powers, or well, one of them. Being X can read minds, and this is shown in chapter 0, when time is suspended. I'll read bits of the actual conversation that took place, so you can get an understanding. And no, I can't read the entire chapter. If you want to hear it or read it, I recommend buying your own copy of the book. I will read a lot of it though. It starts in 2013, modern Japan, and he was just pushed out in front of the train. An elderly man heaves a sigh as he observes me. It has to be one of 3 possible explanations for this. 1, I miraculously survived and the doctor is examining me, but I'm unable to perceive it correctly. 2, I am dying and this is either a delusion or a hallucination. Maybe my life is flashing before my eyes. 3, I've woken up in the real world after mistaking a dream for reality. I could still be half asleep. The whole lot of you have most twisted personalities. What a bunch of nonsense in your head. Did he just read my mind? If it did, that's a violation of my privacy, as well as intrusion on confidential matters. I certainly did, but it's disgusting, reading minds of uncompassionate disbelievers. Well, what do you know? I never dreamt that the devil was real. You come up with the craziest ideas. Only God or the devil is capable of defying universal laws. If God existed, he wouldn't ignore all the injustice in this world. Thus, the world lack a God. Therefore, being X in front of me is the devil. I rest my case. Deranged souls like yours are everywhere these days. Why aren't you attaining enlightenment as humanity advances? I suspect it's simply because of social progress. If I'm dead, what's going to happen to my soul? Let's discuss this constructively. What really matters is what comes next. I'll just throw you back in the cycle of life and death. You're getting reborn. Very well, in that case, go ahead and do your thing. For starters, I plan on doing a better job watching my back in my next life. I've learned that there's 2 kinds of people. Rational and irrational. So I'll undoubtedly need to revisit behavior economics. I've had it! Huh? Can't you guys get your act together? Far from any of you to attain enlightenment and break free from the cycle when you lack so much as a shred of faith. Quite honestly, I have no idea what this being X is so mad about. I realize the elderly can be quick-tempered, but when someone who appears to hold a fairly senior position flies into a blind rage, they can be hard to read. If this were an anime, you could write it off as a gag, but in the real world you rarely get that luxury. Humans these days have strayed too far from the universal laws. They can't tell right from wrong. Jeez, being X preaches about laws, but I have no idea what he's on about. I gave you the 10 commandments, you know. The commandments suddenly flow into my mind via telepathy or something. But oh well. Damn. See, I was born in a polytheistic region of the world, so we are used to letting things slide as religious tolerance. So I'm not sure how to react when someone brings up the commandments. For the record, I happen to honor my parents, and I've never killed anyone. But I am biologically male. Certain sexual instincts are programmed into me. I'll regret that as long as I live. Just how long does a god live? I'm mildly intrigued, if only from a purely academic perspective. I've never fought the desire or impulse to murder someone. Sure, it's refreshing whenever I nail a headshot in an FPS. I am pro-animal rights. I'm pretty sure of that, at least. So you didn't hurt your hand, but you derived pleasure from the act of killing, didn't you? I've never stolen anything, borne false witness against another, or had the joy of winning a married woman's heart. Above all else, I've gone through life as an upright, honest person. I can't recall ever actively defying the prescribed conduct of a human being. If I had been to war, maybe I would have received a revelation from God. Unfortunately, my experience in the military was limited to online games. Have it your way. If you won't repent, I have no choice but to impose a fitting punishment for you. Wait a moment, if you will. Stuff it! I wish you wouldn't lose your temper. If you're claiming to be the supreme being, even if you're not doing a very good job at it, I wish you could be at least a bit more mentally mature. I'm already overworked from managing 7 billion souls. Honestly, isn't that a flaw in the business model? I won't take this from someone who broke his contract. Aren't you guys the one who wanted a shot at enlightenment in the first place? You can't expect me to know unless you notify me. That's what I really think. You bowed before the law of gods, you know. The scientific advances these days are almost magical. Overdeveloped science is practically magic. In our society of abundance, neither a sense of crisis nor devotion will spread without an impending threat. Unless driven into a corner, people won't cling to religion, you know. So, in other words, it's like that, you know? You say I know, but I won't until you tell me. There's nothing to be done about the flippant way I'm treating being X, but not being able to have a conversation is truly frustrating. You're driven by lust, you lack faith, and you don't fear your creator. Furthermore, you can't find a moral fiber in your entire body. Objection! I want to shout. I'm not that bad. Spare me, you're all the same. As I said, the problem is overpopulation, or at least it has to do with our lengthening lifespans. If the number of believers increased with the population, things would be fine. Yeah, so there's the flaw in your business model. That's a structural mistake from back in the planning stages. So, in your case, you don't believe because you're a male living in a world of science, ignorant of war, and unthreatened. Huh? What? I think I might have screwed up. So if I remediate that, even the likes of you would awaken to fate. Aren't you jumping to conclusions? Why don't you calm down? That's right, if we could feel the grace of the Lord, that would solve everything. But of course, I understand. I know all too well how graciously you watch over us. As you're guiding me right now. Yes, I fully understand. So would you please be so kind to lower your hand? And might I add, I'm afraid the part about how I'm ignorant of war was a misunderstanding. Groveling won't get you anywhere now. Wait, my lord, please remember that neither magic nor miracles have been proven real in our world. Enough already, you made your case. Anyways, I'm gonna try this out on you. And that concludes chapter 0. Whew, this rant turned into a reading session. But if you listen all the way, you understand why I had to read this bit. Compared to the rest that I can just explain offhand, it wouldn't be as convincing if I just said, Tanya had a conversation with being X that led to this, or it's Tanya's fault that she got into this because of a conversation and such. The next part that I changed makes a fundamental difference compared to the reincarnation one. So, warning for even heavier spoilers now. And yeah, I said last one was the last one. But here's a surprise spoiler warning. Firstly, it is hinted that there are multiple gods. As in one case, being X is having a conversation with another god. And from what I understood, being X took help from one of them to make the transmutation orb that Tanya is using. Don't quote me on this. This is just what I sort of remember and got from that. With that said, in the light novel, being X doesn't appear in Tanya's room as a nutcracker before the experiment test. What happened was that the mad doctor, instead, was possessed and enlightened with the idea, and then he contacted Tanya while still possessed, and the new transmutation orb was set up to only work with prayers. Or was it? It's more or less the other way around here. It's not that she needs to pray to use a powerful spell, but a powerful spell makes her pray. That's why she appears so shocked and asks, "Did I just pray?" after doing it in the anime. But perhaps unfortunately, it's never properly explained in the anime. At the same time, the way they make it vague is also interesting in a way. Basically, her strongest spells make her pray, and if she uses enough powerful spells, she'll get blackouts and might even lose her memory and get brainwashed in the process. One such example is during a particular hard battle, she used enough power to be brainwashed into getting thoughts about being pretty and even worry about her growth as a woman. And another time, she accepted being dressed up as a doll for a photo shoot, the one with the red dress in the anime. When she said, "How did it come to this?" in the anime, it's more of a genuine question. But it can't be taken as such because of how it's portrayed. Are these changes bad though? I honestly don't think they are. The anime did an excellent job, and I really like the anime. And while I do miss the conversation between being X and Tanya, it's obviously not necessary, as it only hints about why he's so angry at being X, but as seen later, it's just one of many reasons. And in the end, it doesn't make a difference whether it's being X initiative or Tanya saying the wrong things. But what about the brainwash part? After rewatching the anime and rereading the novels a bit, and comparing, it's actually still there. It's just not explained in the anime. So if you know about it and then watch it, it will make more sense, but not knowing won't really ruin anything. Any other changes or details that should have been in the anime? Not many that I can think of, I'm afraid, but one thing is Commander Lergen's attitude. Attitude when she gets the Silverwing medal. He reads the report and his reaction is basically that she did her duty as a soldier and risked her life for the country, but why does it feel so wrong? And then he reads some more. She protected her vitals and did a great deed. And the impression he seems to get is that she did it too well. Was it planned? It's not worded, but that's the impression he seems to get. Unfortunately, he was in the minority when it came to the vote about awarding her the Silverwing. He actually didn't want her to have the Silverwing, as he thought it would be wrong to let that monster have it. And there's also an excellent quote from him. Perhaps Degorachov made an outstanding officer on the front, but she was definitely not of sound mind. In terms of her humanity, she had a loose screw. Perhaps that was the ideal trait for a soldier of fighting wars in the battlefield. In reality, few possessed the personality innately suited for combat. Hence, the Imperial Army, along with the armies of other nations, trained people as soldiers through regulations and drills before finally recognizing them as trained combatants. And there's also the other quote about Tanya that is mentioned shortly after. He understood that you couldn't fight a war with tranquil serenity. It wasn't as if he didn't know from experience that only those who snapped or were truly mad could fight without getting nauseous. But what if someone enjoyed it? And last one is from Lergen again. Degorachov is an anomaly, fundamentally different from the rest of us. Maybe that's what a hero is. Someone divergent from the average person, and in some way, from the average person in some way. There's nothing wrong with celebrating a hero, but we will never teach follow the hero. We cannot afford to foster that. The military academy is a human research development organization, not a place for creating lunatics. But I think it's time to end this rant with some last questions. Should you watch Tanya or should you read it? If you like reading, read it. If you like watching anime, watch the anime. I recommend you do both, but if I'm completely honest, the anime was more interesting and got me hooked more than the light novels did. Mainly because the light novels brought up so much history and politics that it sometimes felt like I was reading an actual history and politic book, which to me isn't that fun compared to all the action in the anime. In that case, was the changes they did before animating it a good thing? Yes, very much so, at least for me and their view count. I think that more people would drop it if it was like a history lesson rather than an action anime. Therefore, I think it was a great change that it did. But it's better if you learn some details from the novels. And that's why I'm ranting here. What will I cover in the next rant? I'm not sure. Most likely a web novel. I was thinking that I should try to cycle my material, so first an anime, then a web novel, then a game, and then a movie, before lastly doing a series, before repeating. Or something along those lines. It's not decided. I will make anime movies count as anime, and if I'm doing an anime movie, I might do an anime afterwards, 2 in a row, to make up for this. Title of upload will mention what I'm ranting about anyways. Thank you for listening all the way. This has been Kiyo, and I think I got to say what I wanted to say. Goodbye.